Ayo peeps, Kodo SP3 here, and this is a walkthrough for Ultimate Battle 2 of Yakuza 0. Here, you fight Lee, Nishitani, and Sera. As you know, bosses are buffed in this mode, just as you are, so you still want to be careful. For example, this needle combo he does can actually be quite devastating and take a huge chunk of your health, which is important for the later fights. A good rule of thumb is to not use too many of the same heat actions against bosses, as the damage decreases over time. You do not want this disadvantage against Sera, because your normal combos won't work against him. So better to be safe than sorry, and solely rely on the chairs and stools or heat actions against Lee. Using counters like Thug, Harsh Lesson, and Breaker elbow counter are actually very useful, especially the elbow first and then Harsh Lesson. But if you just want to get the first two bosses out of the way really quickly, that's totally okay. It's fine if you do that Breaker combo, because that's a still very good way to dish out good damage and gain some good heat, but I still highly recommend using Harsh Lesson. Nishitani's fight requires a different strategy than you would use on Lee, because if you just use Thug, you're just going to get slashed, and you'll lose a lot of health, and you'll lose a lot of heat that you really do need to counter his pseudo Mad Dog style. So I recommend for Nishitani to stick to Breaker, and doing that specific rush combo as it does good damage and floors him. Only really use Thug for like grab heat actions, but don't rely on them, as he can either break out of them or counter throw you, and then proceed to stab you. Another good reason to stick to Breaker is so you can also use the rolling snake move on Nishitani, as it cancels his attacks, including his bait moves where he throws himself on the ground, and his little bait taunts. Just remember, rolling snake can only be used in second heat bar, so keep that in mind. Now, quick heads up for Nishitani. Despite Breaker being super effective against him, do not get careless. Any opening you have, he can and will exploit it if given the chance. With just 4 to 5 slashes, he took out nearly half my health, and trust me, he can do a lot worse than that. Now, huge disclaimer, this is not a no damage video. However, it is important that Lee and Nishitani do not damage you as much as possible, because Sera cannot be approached the same way as those two. You still want to rely heavily on moves like Rolling Snake and Harsh Lesson, and if necessary, go on ahead and spam them. But just be careful not to be hit by Sera, because just one rush combo, let alone one punch, can deal significant damage. So that's why you must save your heat actions, and you must fight patiently. Because of his heavily dodgy fighting style, it's very easy to get punished for, say, like whiffing a rush combo, or whiffing a rolling snake, or whiffing a grab. You're going to want to save your slugger heat actions for this fight, because using them for a heat bar restores your health just a little bit. Just as dodging in Breaker mode when you're about to die also does the same. As you can see, his rush combos brought me down to critical health, which is why I once again stress not grabbing him like you would grab a lead. If your health is running low, I would suggest either switching the breaker, like I mentioned before, and dodging to get your health out of the red zone, or use your desperation moves in your other styles. Like the slugger move, it can only be used in third heat bars, so keep that in mind, plus to gain a little bit of health. Now here's how you beat Sera with non-critical health. So my strat for this outcome was the same, except I took a few more risks and used a harsh lesson and waited more patiently to attack him. This is actually quite difficult to pull off, really. Like I mentioned, he's super dodgy and very punishy if you whiff, so I still took quite a nasty beating. As I had mentioned earlier, you can't grab Sera the same way as the other bosses, so your safest bet is to grab him from behind when he's facing away from you. And it's a huge bonus if it's by a railing, because you pretty much have a unique heat action to use there, and it deals a lot of damage. And if you're not by a railing, don't worry, you can still throw him, and you gain some nice heats. I'm sure you've noticed that quite a few times I've brought up the effectiveness of using elbow counter, but never actually used it. Unfortunately, due to the sheer amount of raw footage there was and how many times I went through this gauntlet, it just wasn't shown in the final product really. But I will admit during that little goofy game of cat and mouse that I had to speed the hell out of, there were just plenty of chances for me to use the elbow move, but I just really didn't. But unlike Tiger Drop in the later games, elbow counter is punishable. I do remember getting punished for elbow counter, for whipping it, so just keep that in mind when going through this fight for yourselves. And with that, that's the end of the walkthrough.